The pursuit of a wealth tax by the Labour Party is nothing short of a political misstep, a poorly thought-out scheme masquerading as social justice. While it may sound like a quick fix to Britain's financial troubles, it is a dangerous path that risks further undermining the country's economy and driving away the very people who could help turn things around. The current clamour within Labour and its supporting groups for a tax on wealth reveals a profound misunderstanding of the delicate balance required to maintain a healthy economy. Those who advocate for taxing the rich overlook a fundamental truth. Wealth creators are the engine that drives this nation's prosperity, and punishing them will only lead to the stagnation of the very growth that is needed. Let us be clear. The wealthy are already contributing to the nation's coffers through an array of taxes. From value-added tax to capital gains tax, stamp duty, and council tax, the financial burden on the affluent is not negligible. A new wealth tax, as some within the Labour Party propose, is a punitive measure, a politically convenient tactic aimed at stoking populist sentiment rather than solving the underlying economic problems. While advocates may argue that such a tax is fair, after all, those with the most wealth should contribute more. This line of reasoning is not only flawed but short-sighted. To believe that further taxing the rich will somehow create long-term financial stability for the Treasury is to ignore the broader economic picture. We have seen such proposals fail before, and it would be wise for those in the Labour Party to look at the lessons history provides. The case of France's wealth tax should serve as a cautionary tale. Introduced by Socialist President François Mitterrand in 1982, the French wealth tax was meant to reduce inequality but ultimately proved to be a disaster. It did little to boost the government's finances. At its peak, it contributed just 2% of total tax receipts. Worse still, it drove tens of thousands of millionaires to leave the country, seeking more favorable economic environments. France eventually scrapped the tax in 2017, recognizing the damage it had done. The exodus of the wealthy from France underscores a painful reality. Wealth creators are mobile, and they will take their capital elsewhere if they feel unduly targeted. Rachel Reeves, the Labour Party's shadow chancellor, would do well to heed this warning before rushing into a wealth tax that could drive away even more of Britain's most productive citizens. The damage a wealth tax could do to Britain's economy would be profound. The wealthy are not simply passive recipients of riches. They are the entrepreneurs, investors, and job creators who fuel innovation, growth, and job creation. The top 1% of earners in the UK already contribute nearly 30% of all tax revenues. These individuals and businesses sustain the very infrastructure that supports the rest of society. And yet, instead of rewarding them for their contributions, some factions within Labour are bent on penalising them further. A wealth tax would not only threaten their willingness to invest in Britain but could also exacerbate the very financial difficulties that the government is trying to resolve. What is perhaps most alarming about this entire debate is the disregard for the lessons that have already been learned. The recent surge in millionaire emigration from the UK is a clear sign that punitive policies are pushing the wealthy out. According to the Adam Smith Institute, 10,800 millionaires left the UK in the past year, double the number from the previous year. This trend is not a coincidence. The more the government imposes higher taxes on the wealthy, the more likely they are to seek refuge in more tax-friendly jurisdictions. If Britain continues down this road, it will find itself facing an even more fragile economy, with fewer investors, fewer entrepreneurs, and fewer jobs for the average person. At the heart of the argument for a wealth tax is a fundamentally flawed assumption, that taxing the rich more will somehow trickle down to benefit everyone else. This notion of redistribution may be appealing in theory, but in practice, it rarely works as intended. Instead of generating the anticipated revenue, a wealth tax would drive capital out of the country, leaving behind a less dynamic economy with fewer opportunities for those who need them most. The obsession with wealth inequality is not just misguided. It is a distraction from the real challenges facing the British economy. If we are to rebuild after years of economic turmoil, we must focus on creating an environment that fosters growth and encourages investment, not one that punishes success. This means keeping taxes competitive, incentivizing business development, and attracting global talent to invest in the UK. Labour's fixation on a wealth tax undermines these objectives and risks doing irreparable harm to the economic prospects of the nation. To advocate for a wealth tax is to ignore the complex, interconnected nature of a modern economy. It is easy to point the finger at the wealthy and demonize them as the source of all our problems, but this approach ignores the reality that wealth creation is what drives progress in society. If we want to lift people out of poverty, we must foster an environment where entrepreneurship and investment are rewarded, not punished. A wealth tax will only achieve the opposite, pushing wealth creators away and leaving Britain poorer as a result. In the end, the push for a wealth tax is not about fairness, it is about political expediency. It is easier to target the rich than to address the structural issues that have led to the country's economic difficulties. But this short-sighted approach will ultimately harm the very people Labour claims to support, the working-class citizens who depend on a growing, dynamic economy for their livelihoods. Rather than chasing after fleeting populist gains, Labour should focus on policies that will encourage investment, promote job creation, and build a prosperous future for all.